Hey guys, this is Autumn, Ariana, and Peyton, and we did our presentation on comparative essays. So first, just to give you a simple definition, it's just an essay that literally compares things. Any two or more ideas, groups, or texts, really anything. Like anything can be in a comparative essay, it doesn't matter what it is, it could be for any subject. It's really important for religion majors when they're analyzing religious texts. So any kind of scripture from any faith, it's really beneficial for them to compare and contrast these things. Religious scholars do often engage in comparative analysis. They compare topics such as religious groups, theological concepts, themes, or religious texts, like I mentioned earlier. These subjects usually will be assigned by your professor, but occasionally you will be tasked with also choosing an appropriate topic as well as writing the paper. You should always get professor approval because not everything is really suited for a comparative essay. Some things are definitely better than others, so just run it by your professor if you have any kind of doubt, because it is really important, for you to have a substantial topic to talk about to reach your minimum length, or to include enough details to really keep your paper balanced and focused. So you might be wondering why they're important. They are really simple, very straightforward, but they do encourage deeper understanding of any kind of topic material, because when you have to compare something, you have to compare and contrast. So you need it balanced, you need it even, which means you need enough facts that you can do that throughout your entire essay. So religion scholars, they actually use this when they are trying to learn more about another faith. So it's really beneficial because they have to put in a lot of research into this other faith and, really understand where these people are coming from. They kind of have to get a little creative with it, have to really dig deep and, find those differences, find those similarities, kind of think outside the box. It really comes in handy when you're trying to get some clarity on scriptures. How they relate to each other, how they connect, maybe how one faith is similar to another. You can really read that through their scriptures. Connections or relationships within a topic material, within any topic. So this third bullet, you could apply that to any kind of subject, any major. And it does encourage creative and out-of-the-box thinking, as I mentioned earlier, because occasionally it might be hard to find something to compare with two things. But if you really research it, you really try, you'll notice those similarities and those differences, and these essays really encourage that creative thinking. So these are some helpful examples from our book. So for texts, one example is comparing Genesis versus the Enuma Elish, which is another creation story. If any of you guys have had Dr. calls for Old Testament, you may have done this paper before. It was really beneficial, and it is a great example. For individuals or groups, maybe you're comparing two different faiths or even two denominations within the same faith. It can really give you some clarity on how different they really are. Historical events, the assassination of Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. is a good example. Issues or theories, religious pluralism in two different countries. And then religious practices or beliefs, you could compare something like Hindu and Islam, as we see here, or really anything, Christianity and Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, anything.
So some controlling ideas, or your thesis, and basically how to construct that. Your thesis is like your main focal point of the essay. You want your essay to be argumentative, so try and make your thesis argumentative. It is vital for a strong comparative essay. You want to start off strong. Your thesis and theme of your paper will need to reflect the differences or similarities that you're going to compare throughout your paper. You want to try not to stray away from that thesis and theme of your paper by going off more on one topic than the other. Your thesis should be narrowed and provide the framework for your paper. You should be careful. You want to keep your research very narrowed. Keep that focal point for your essay. Really be careful that your essay does not detract from your thesis. That's that basically. And so how to structure a comparative essay. So as you're writing your essay, you want to be asking yourself, how will I organize my research for this comparative essay? Like I said before, you want to try and find that narrow topic, narrow it down as much as you can, keep your research narrow. For example, let's say you have topic A and topic B in your paper. You don't want to research more on topic A than topic B. And so 3 approaches that you can go about in a comparative essay is the subject-based approach, the component-based approach, and the lens approach. The subject-based approach is basically where you structure your paper talking first about the similarities and differences of topic A and then the similarity and differences of topic B. The component-based approach is theme-based, and from the book, you want the aspects of both A and B for component 1, then A and B for component 2. So if that's like saying you want to say, here's the similarities in A, here's the similarities in B, and then here's the differences in A, and here's the differences in B. The lens approach, personally, I've never taken the lens approach on a comparative essay, but it's basically where you investigate one subject in light of the other. In the book on pages 112 through 115, it gives you a lot of different examples through each approach, and they're very helpful, so I suggest to go look at those. So what you want to be aware of or try to avoid whenever you're writing a comparative essay. Be aware, make sure you check the rubric and really listen to your instructor and how they may want your essay structured. Be aware that your instructors might have a specific way that they would like you to handle your essay. Some may want a different approach. Make sure you compare and do not catalog. If you go through and list and say, here's the list of similarities and here's the list of differences, then you're cataloging and you're not comparing. And so comparison is looking at 2 or more things together. Once again, keep the narrow focus always. Limit your research. That will help with that. Make sure you have specific components because they will lead to a richer comparison. Balance and clarity. You want to keep the balance in your paper, a comparison paper. Strive for balance throughout the essay and in the tone of your essay. And a professor will be able to tell if you're focusing more on one topic than the other, and maybe you might favor one topic, have favor over one topic than the other, and they'll be able to tell. So try to keep that unbiased approach. You need to demonstrate why you have approached the essay in this manner. In your overall essay, you want to aim for clarity and precision, and 2 ways. And the main 2 places that you will do that is in your thesis and in your conclusion. So your thesis should be clear and precise, and one way to have a clear and precise thesis is that you can use transition phrases. Some transition phrases might be like on the one hand or on the other hand or like, just as, similar to, whereas, alternatively. Those are just some ideas you can use in your thesis to keep it clear and precise. Your conclusion will bring clarity. Your conclusion should offer clarity and summarize your well-documented argument. And you don't want to have any outbreaking approach to your conclusion. You don't want to put any new ideas in there. You just basically want to sum up and demonstrate your points that you had mentioned.
So one final thing, which is in your book on page 118, in case you guys need to go reference that, they actually give you a very nice checklist, and it covers basically everything that you need to make sure that you've included in your comparative essay. So step 1, what am I being asked to compare? So just make sure that, if someone was reading your essay and they had no idea beforehand what your topic was or what you were doing, would they immediately grasp hey, these are the 2 things that she's comparing, he or she is comparing. You don't want them to be confused. You don't want to sneak any kind of ideas in there that kind of, is this actually important? You want to keep it very, very precise, very clear. You just don't want to confuse anybody. Step 2, have I isolated components or issues that can be used as the basis for my comparison? Are these appropriate for the length and nature of the essay assigned? So you just want to make sure, depending on the length of your essay, you might need to get a little more specific or a little more broad. You just need to make sure, it can vary assignment to assignment. You just really, it kind of depends, but just look over it and just, make sure everything that you've pinpointed or taken out or really focused on is appropriate for that essay. Because if you're comparing two things like Genesis and the Enuma Elish, you don't just want to pick out one line, one issue, and focus on that. You want to get the whole story in there, just for one example. Step 3, what approach will I take in this essay? Am I clear and consistent with this approach? So referring to the earlier 3 approaches that Ariana spoke about, you just want to make sure that you stick to one. It can be kind of easy to get a little confused, but like if you're doing your subject-based approach and you're comparing topic A in one paragraph, or speaking about topic A in one paragraph and speaking about topic B in another, that's what you need to stick with. You don't need to sneak components of topic A into your topic B paragraph if that's not what you were going for. You just don't want to blur the lines between any of those approaches. You just need to stick to a solid outline. Just determine that in the beginning and just really try to stay true to that. Step 4, do I have a controlling idea or thesis that can serve as a framework for the essay? Thesis, very important, no matter what it is, any essay, even in your comparative essay. Whatever you're comparing, you'll probably have an idea pretty quickly of what you want your thesis to be, since you already have a pretty straightforward topic and you already know what you're doing, because obviously in a comparative essay, you will be comparing, So just make sure that that's also clear. Make sure that stays, like your main idea, that your essay doesn't include, too much fluff or too many ideas from other things. You really want to keep your focus in this essay. Step 5, have I offered a balanced comparison of my topics? Again, like Ariana was talking about, a balance is really important, and this is actually something that a lot of kids will struggle with when they're writing a comparative essay. Maybe they focus more on similarities than differences, or more on differences and similarities, or as she said, maybe they focus more on one topic than another topic. If you're more, if you're well versed in one of your topics, more so than your second one, don't let that deter you. Just, you put in a little bit more research. If you don't know a whole lot about topic B, maybe spend more time on that one than topic A, since you already have some background knowledge. Just make sure that you balance that out, so that way your reader gets the best of both worlds and doesn't just have, one thing thrown in their face the whole time. And then finally, is your focus clear? So this kind of sums up everything else. Are you being straightforward? Are you just, you're talking exactly about what you're supposed to be talking about? You're not, straying off on different paths. You're just, you want to keep it focused. You just really want to keep it focused, because you don't want to confuse your reader, and your professor, of course, they know what you're supposed to be comparing. So while they're reading it, they're going to know, if you stray off that path. So just make sure you read over it, keep everything clear. Clarity is just a big, big issue.
So for our interview, we did Dr. Step, and his examples were for like Old Testament survey. So he said like Genesis 1 versus Genesis 2, the different creation accounts, and Noah versus the flood account of Gilgamesh epic. So we asked like what his end goals would be for a paper, and he said the to like equally engage both sides of your comparison. So like not just focusing on one thing over the other. His words of advice were professors are wanting students to see something they've usually never seen. So to really look more in depth into your topics, and not just the basics of what it is, but more of like more in depth, and then like challenge yourself to think outside of the box, not just doing what you're expected to do, but also add different components that can make your comparison stand out more than others. And then be okay with confronting similarities versus differences. So like familiarize yourself with how to do that instead of just going off the top of your head with it and like not being confident in yourself when you do it. And then so like setup would be like summary of the first article and then summary of the second. And then you describe the similarities between the two and then differences. And then he really exaggerated the point of always proofread and cite your work.
So these were our discussion questions, but obviously, we can't really discuss with you guys. So if you have anything that you'd like to share concerning either of these questions, you guys could, throw that on the discussion board too if you'd like. Maybe include it in your questions. So whatever you guys, if there's something about this PowerPoint that confused you, if there's something you'd like us to clarify, any kind of questions you have, anything that we maybe didn't touch on that you thought of, just feel free to talk about anything, whether it's just discussion or a question or comments, whatever.
And there's our works cited.